Well, welcome back, folks. This is Texas State Senator Bob Hall, and I just wanted to get back with you and give you a little bit of an update on what's been happening and what we see is going on with regards to this power outage we've had and where we are in Texas with protecting our electrical grid. Some of you well know that we've been working now for almost 8 years trying to get the attention of our state agencies, the power companies, and get something done to protect the electrical grid. And I think one of the things that people have had a hard time understanding is how important electricity really is. And I think maybe that message may have gotten out this last week as people went without power for a while, and where they got a very small taste of what it would be like to move back into a world in which electricity was rationed greatly or was non-existing. Folks, life as we know it could not continue. I don't think I need to remind anybody here that electricity, because of our society and how we live today, electricity is the third most important thing to sustaining life. The only two things that are more important are air and water. And people will live much longer without food than they will about electricity. And so it's time that we take a look at where we really are in protecting one of our most important sustainers of life and quit treating it so frivolously as we have done. Now, this situation we find ourselves in, I think it is one of those that those of you who have been in the military will understand that generally a catastrophe like what we have been going through doesn't happen because of just one thing failing or one thing going wrong or one person not doing what they should be doing. It's usually a combination of things that take place. And that's what we had with this current situation we have. I say I don't mean it as a pun, but it really was a perfect storm of multiple shortcomings and failures all manifesting themselves at the same time. All parts of it contributed. It's hard to say that one was more significant than the other. They all went together to create this problem that we have got to take the action to solve. Over the last several years, Texas has gravitated to a lot of renewable wind energy. A lot of taxpayer money has been spent on this very questionable contribution to our electrical system. Anyone who understands it would know that if it were not for the government subsidies, wind and solar would not be even out there at all. And so it has cost us a lot of money, and our dependence on it helped lead us to where we are. In addition to that, the attack on our coal-fired plants that has caused them to shut down. We've lost many plants over the last several years have just quit operating because the onerous requirements that were put on them by EPA. So we've lost capacity, and our structure, the financial structure that we have here in Texas, it does not allow for or encourage the new construction of facilities. So we haven't had a new facility built in the last 10 or 12 years. And the population of Texas continues to grow, the demand continues to grow. And we have known for the last few years that we have operated with almost no margin, very small margins, well under 10% in the summer and in the winter. Unfortunately, since 2011, we haven't had a real winter like we've had now. But last August, we reached our peak capacity. And then we're also hamstrung with the other environmental restraints out there that don't even allow us to produce all the electricity that we could produce because of the huge fines that the power companies would have if they exceeded the federal requirements. And so we got boxed in. And on top of that, the power industry in general, and again, this is something those of you in the military would understand. We always had what was called preventative maintenance on all of our equipment, whether it was aircraft, weapons, transportation, whatever it was. We knew what things would fail, and so we didn't want them to break when we needed them the most. And so we performed routine maintenance. It's almost non-existing in the power industry. Their basic philosophy is it is run to failure. That's why you end up with power outages. Parts break and wear out, and then the power company will go out and fix it. And that's the general philosophy. So you put all that together, and it got us to where we were. And I will say that once we got into the crisis, for the most part, now there were a lot of mistakes that were made and things that you always Monday morning quarterback some of this, but in general, what the power ERCOT did with the rolling blackouts saved our electrical grid. We entered into a very tenuous situation of being highly overloaded. The demand greatly exceeded the capacity. And had they not done what they did with the rolling shutdowns, now they could have done a better job. There's no question about that. In some areas, they did not react quick enough to fix things. But I'm just saying, in general, they kept the grid from collapsing completely. Had it collapsed, we here in Texas would have been without power for weeks, if not months, to rebuild the system. And so we're not quite out of it yet, but it looks like we're getting close to it. And so that's kind of a summary of where we are. But what we could have done about this, we started back in 2015 with a bill to protect our electrical grid from both man-made and natural disasters. And while we were very successful in getting it out of the Senate, all 3 sessions, it died in the House each time. But I will say this last time, our bill on resilient communities, which had expanded to recognize that not only do we need to make sure we have our electrical system survive and operate, but we need to have the rest of the infrastructure that is so important to sustaining life, which includes things like communications, emergency services, financial services, first responders, et cetera. And we created what we call a program for resilient communities to develop those things that would make sure that whether it's man-made or a natural disaster, those things that are necessary to sustaining and maintaining life would have a high chance of surviving. Now, our bill last session, I said we got it. Our lieutenant governor moved it to a committee that would actually pass it out. We kind of out of natural resources, and we got it out of the Senate. And then it went to the House, and it was in State Affairs. And I can tell you that the State Affairs was chaired at that time by our current Speaker of the House, Dave Phelan, and he passed it out of the House, was supportive of it, got it out of the State Affairs Committee in the House, where it went to calendars and was buried. Now, calendars in the House is the committee in which the dark hands that operate behind the scene want a bill to not get to the floor. It just never gets out of the calendars committee because of the way it operates. It just kind of sits there and then ends up dying. And so while I commend our lieutenant governor for helping to get it out of the Senate, and Dave Phelan for what he did in his leadership to get it out of the Senate State Affairs Committee, we still did not get it to the governor's desk. But hopefully this time we will. And our bill is being revised a little bit to adapt to things we have learned since then. And we're also going to expand it. Now, it may be handled in a separate bill, but President Trump recognized the problem we have and a threat to our electrical grid. And he had a couple of really good executive orders that was going to require a major upgrade across the board to our system to make it more resilient nationally. That would affect the other 2 grids. Texas is on its own. Texas has its own grid, as many of you know. There are 3 in the United States. There's the Eastern grid, the Western grid, and then there's Texas. We don't need the federal government, and we don't need to have them get in our way. We can do it ourselves. And so in addition to that of the upgrade, President Trump recognized a threat from our number 1 enemy, China. And that equipment being built in China, we have discovered is including what's called malware. That is software and hardware that's embedded in the equipment, stealth, that is there that allows the person who put it there, China in this case, to have control over it. And so we have been finding that power equipment that we have been buying from China has malware in it, and that makes us very vulnerable to Chinese control without ever a nuclear attack. They don't need to do that. If they could shut down our power grid system, they will have achieved exactly the same thing that they could achieve with a nuclear detonation 250 nautical miles above the central part of the United States by simply selling us equipment that has software and hardware in it that they can remotely control. This has already happened to us before. A few years back, they sold us avionics for one of our fighter aircraft that we had to completely replace. It came about as a result of Bill Clinton allowing the Chinese to have our technology. Well, they've got that same technology, and because of the onerous restrictions we've had in the United States, we have driven these manufacturers offshore for making this equipment. And so we have got to bring that back to the United States, but we have got to stop using equipment that is not made by Americans to protect ourselves. Because I don't think I need to tell you, after what you've gone through this last week, that electricity is extremely important. Life in Texas does not continue without it. And so we have to, this session, pass a bill that is for our resilient communities. And I will be working on that along with prohibiting the use of foreign-made equipment. And so that's where we stand. Our bills are being worked on here. Hopefully we'll be having hearings within the next couple of weeks and start moving these through the process. And I will keep you informed as we go along. In the meantime, you can follow us on our Facebook page, Senator Bob Hall. Where you are now, we will continue to have updates and let you know the progress we're making. And you can also check out our website, senatorbobhall.com. In the meantime, our office is open. It is open to everyone. No appointment is required and no mask are required in our office. We are there to serve the people of Texas, and we want you to be part of what we do because we are there to serve you. It is not our office, it is your office, and you are welcome at any time. In the meantime, may God bless you and God bless Texas.